things of that nature, 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 things of that nature.
And welcome into a very special guest interview here during the bye week for the Razorbacks, sitting at 4-2, but halfway point of the season, surprising some people, but still a long way to go. And we're joined here, very special guest here with JD PicKell. Of course, you can find him on On3 Sports. He's the host of the Hard Count. And JD, it's been a long time, man, but appreciate you joining us. How you doing this football season, man?
It's flying by, is it not? I mean, I look up and we're already halfway through, and you're looking at, okay, gosh, well, October, we're almost halfway through October now in week 7. I mean, it's nuts, man. But I guess the best part about it is now we have the longest college football season, to my knowledge, at least in history, going all the way to January 20th. So I'm just trying to take it all in, man, as I'm sure you are as well after that massive win out there in Fayetteville. But glad to be on with you, man. Glad we can make this happen.
Yeah, me too, man. And it is kind of crazy to think about, like, just where it's at. So I'm going to just ask you this question. I know it's one that you've been thinking about pretty much all week long. Exactly how realistic is that path to the college football playoff for the Arkansas Razorbacks, obviously, after a win against Tennessee? I think that may be a little bit too over the top. But you got to admit, Arkansas being at 4-2, winning that Tennessee game, they're not perfect, but I think they've at least exceeded a lot of people's expectations midway point of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up because that was something that I've been thinking about, honestly, since the end of that Tennessee game. I'm pulling up the SEC standings here so I don't speak out of turn on where everyone's standing here. It feels like everyone has a shot at this point. And I think the thing that's interesting, too, with Red River this weekend, let's just say Oklahoma gets a little bit spunky and Oklahoma pulls out some Sooner Magic and then Texas gets one loss. Like, that would hit the reset button on a lot of our, maybe not the season per se, but it would hit the reset on a lot of the preconceived notions, if you will, on what isn't possible within the SEC for a lot of teams. So I've been saying this too. I think Arkansas, I know you're obviously watching all these games, but for a lot of people that just sort of breeze over the box score and see, oh man, Arkansas played Oklahoma State tough there. It's like, no, they should have beat Oklahoma State. Oh man, Texas A&M game, that was pretty close. Like, Arkansas really showed themselves in that game. No, Arkansas, I think probably would have, should have, could have won that football game. I mean, they got the ball in the final possession, and it's a Nick Scorton strip sack that ends up sealing the deal. But like, I think in some ways, outside of the playoff, and I know that's going to be what I think a lot of folks get excited about in this new era of the 12-team playoff, as they should, with more spots. But if you just look at overall the Arkansas product, like what it is night and day with Sam Pittman going and getting over 20 transfers to add into Fayetteville like that. I mean, the difference a year makes and the difference a quarterback makes and the difference Sam Pittman makes, I think, is very evident. And it's hard to be more excited for a head coach in college football than Sam Pittman.
Yeah, you mentioned it and how like Arkansas was able to do a bunch of different things in the transfer portal. Obviously hired a new offensive coordinator, Bobby Petrino, and everything. Mm-hmm. But I think that's maybe what is a little bit surprising for Razorback fans because they hired Petrino. They got Taylon Green, who's been good at times, but if you look at his completion percentage, hasn't been great. He's only thrown for, I believe, 6 touchdowns passes so far this season. Has 5 interceptions. So it's not like he's been perfect or even good if you look at just the numbers. But then you just look at the rest and you got some guys on defense and everything. But what I guess is the biggest difference from a year ago, a team that went 4-8 and 1-7 in conference play, to where now they're sitting at 4-2, double their SEC wins at 2-1, and heading into a bye week to where it seems like, hey, a couple things go their way, they might be looking at an 8-win season at this point.
So I think there's 2 ways that I want to answer that. There's one in the literal sense, having a quarterback, having someone who can take a play that would have been, at best, you throw it away. At worst, it's a loss. Now that's someone that can turn that into short gain to a first down. So just the way that defenses have to honor that. I mean, we've seen Armstrong benefit from that. We've seen Jaquindon Jackson, the addition he's been for Arkansas has been massive. So in the literal sense, I think offensively, clearly there's a lot more juice. I think that's the obvious part that we're all seeing. I'm going to go ahead and speculate a little bit here. And I don't know this to be true. I've never spoken to Taylon Green. I only got to see him from a distance at SEC Media Days. I think the dude's got some swag to him. I think he's got some confidence to him. And an opinion of mine is that as a team, you are going to, at some point in time, take on the persona of your leadership as a head coach and as a quarterback. And I think the persona of Arkansas's leadership and Taylon Green is like, hey, like I'm here to ball. Like I'm here to not take part, but take over. I am here to kick butt and chew bubblegum. I'm all out of bubblegum. Like, I don't care what happened last year. I'm here for this year. And so I think some of that just like what's next mentality that Matt Rule talks a lot about at Nebraska, I think that has slowly but surely permeated throughout this Arkansas team. And I mean, it is a very, very different outfit, clearly, both on the field and I think ultimately in a wins-loss perspective from what they were last year being 4-8. And like you said, 8 wins is 110% on the table.
Well, and I'm looking at the rest of Arkansas' schedule because they are in a bye week this week. And then you're talking about having LSU at home in Fayetteville, then on the road to Mississippi State. Then they play Ole Miss at home, then a bye week again. Then they get Texas at home, Louisiana Tech at home, and then they finish the year on the road in Columbia against Missouri. So the SEC is pretty crazy right now. I mean, it's hard to really gauge. It's weird midway point in the season. There's a lot of uncertainty still with the SEC, but realistically speaking, I mean, what do you look at from that schedule, and who do you think is the teams that match up really well with Arkansas where you like their chances of winning those in the SEC?
I'm looking at them right now, and I'm just like, I'm not sure about LSU, man. I mean, we're going to learn a lot about them this week against Ole Miss. If that one's in Death Valley, you feel differently. But what South Carolina was able to show with Lenoris Sellers and how he ran the football, like, I don't know that it gets talked about enough. LSU probably should have lost that game. Like, if Lenoris Sellers stays healthy, I think South Carolina pours it on and probably wins that football game. Lenoris Sellers is a great athlete. Taylon Green is also a very similarly great athlete. And so what he can bring in the run game with that being in Razorback Stadium, like, I think that's one you circle. I have not been high on Missouri. I get it's on the road. I understand that. But even with that being the case, like, I don't know if Missouri is going to be able to keep pace with Arkansas, especially if Arkansas has what they have right now on the defensive line, if that kind of continues. So those two circle for sure. And then, I mean, this is now becoming a little more optimistic, but like getting Ole Miss after Mississippi State. So, I mean, you would hope that you're still, pretty healthy. Getting Texas off a bye is huge. Probably a little bit too optimistic to think that that's going to be great. But I would say this, the fact that you get Ole Miss, I have their schedule pulled up right now. You get them after Oklahoma. Oklahoma could be kind of spunky. We'll see. Maybe they give them some little bit of a push, but you get them right before they right before they have Georgia in Oxford. Like, that to me has a look ahead spot written all over it in red ink if I'm Ole Miss. So probably don't feel as optimistic about Texas, but I think Missouri's very winnable. Probably will pick Arkansas. I think LSU's very winnable. Could pick Arkansas, and then I think the Ole Miss game is extremely winnable as well.
So obviously we talked a little bit about the offense and with Taylon Green, but I think one of the things Razorback fans have been so impressed by is Travis Williams, the defensive coordinator for Arkansas, in the defense. I mean, in the 3 SEC games that Arkansas has played, which you can argue about whether or not the opponents were quality or not, offensively, whatever it is, but giving up 14 points to Auburn on the road, giving up 21 points to Texas A&M down in Arlington, and then giving up only 14 points to Tennessee. What have you seen from Arkansas's defense, which a lot of people were nervous about, especially at the linebacker position, lost a lot of players last year? Why have they been able to have so much success in the SEC defensively, where it's almost like a lost art, it seems like, being able to hold teams to less than 20 points a game?
Yeah, and so I think I probably would answer that in a similar way I answered the question about Taylon Green. I don't want to put too much stock into the freestyle, but like, it's very clear this defense plays for Travis Williams. Like they are very much so dialed into him as a person as well as a coach. And then anytime you got someone like Landon Jackson able to rush the passer the way he is, their defensive line overall here, I'm pulling up what they are on the ground in terms of yards per carry, what they're holding teams to, like 126 yards on the ground a game. Like, in the SEC, that'll do it. And so how opportunistic they've been as well is obviously a huge part of it. But no, I mean, Arkansas, the confidence level of this team has just been so fun to watch. And it was awesome to watch against a team like Tennessee that was coming to your place, that was off a bye, that was off a big win over Oklahoma the week before, had all this momentum. And Arkansas just seemed to not care at all about it. And I think that kind of psychopath competitive gene that just able to block it all out, I think we're seeing that benefit Arkansas in a massive, massive way.
So looking at from the SEC perspective, right now you got Texas A&M leading the way at 3-0, and then you have Texas and LSU. Those are the 3 teams that are undefeated right now in the SEC. Do you believe that it is Texas versus the field, or do you still believe that there's one team above Texas right now, even though they're undefeated, that's going to end up winning the SEC at this point?
I think in that conversation, I probably still would say Texas is the lead dog. I mean, I think could they lose to Georgia if it were in Athens? Maybe you feel differently with it being in Austin. I probably think Texas is a little more put together right now. If that game is in November, do we still feel like Texas is better than Georgia? Maybe our opinion changes. But I think right now what we know about everyone in the SEC, Alabama, super gettable. Offense is really good. Vanderbilt's, I think, better than people think. But a lot of teams in the SEC should have players that are as good as Vanderbilt. So they should be pretty gettable. Georgia, I don't know how gettable they are and how much was just the Kalen DeBoer special we saw in Tuscaloosa. I think you can make a very strong argument in theory and kind of based on the roster how good Georgia is. Are they better than Texas on paper? Maybe. But I think just with Steve Sarkisian and the experience factor they have with the Quinn Ewers, and I mean, we forget, like, they were top 25 in returning production coming into this year, even with all that they lost at the wide receiver position. Like, they bring back 4 of the 5 offensive linemen, some key returners on defense. So I think Texas is still the team to beat in the SEC. But you mentioned A&M, man, their path. We redid our college football playoff predictions today, like kind of a 2.0, if you will. Hey, we're halfway through the year. What do we know? And with what we think we know, what does that then lead us to believe? I think Texas A&M is going to be in Atlanta for the SEC title game. And I don't know that they're the second best team in the SEC. I probably would vote against that. But with their schedule, how they're playing, I think they're going to find themselves in Atlanta. And if you're Arkansas, you're saying, hey, we had a chance to beat them in Jerry World on the final drive. So can't feel bad about that if you're a Razorback fan.
And how crazy would it be that if it's Texas and Texas A&M playing in the final week of the season, and then they rematch against each other in the SEC title game, and then they have a chance to rematch each other in the college football playoff? I could be wrong, but I feel like that'd be the first time ever you'd have a team play each other 3 times in a college football season.
It's so crazy, man. I feel like we're going to get so many rematches this year. Like Ohio State, Oregon this weekend is going to be awesome. And you're looking at it, you're like, okay, this will be sweet. You wonder if either side is going to maybe save a little bit for the next time they play, because you would think they'll play in the Big Ten title game. You would think they'll play, in at some point in the playoff potential. Like it's a weird world to be in right now, and I don't know that we've all fully like processed it until we see it for the second and third time. But yeah, it's the new college football, and we're all just trying to adapt on the fly.
Hey, listen, I think college football, having 12 teams in the playoff, it's going to be an awesome thing, and I think whatever we believe now probably can change in a week. That's what makes it so much fun and so great for it. But it's JD PicKell. You can catch him on Twitter at JD PicKell. Of course, he is the host of the Hard Count on On3 Sports. And JD, it's good catching up with you, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. As we still got a lot of games left in the college football season, but it's about halfway over. So we just got to enjoy it while we have it, man. I know you do a great job over there. So enjoy it. And we look forward to catching up with you later down the road.
Dude, such a blast. Always great talking ball with you. Yeah, let's buckle up and finish strong the second half, man. Thanks for having me.